Hi, welcome to the History Show. My name is Matt Scott, and this is one of our continuing interviews and oral histories with veterans. And we have a real catch with us today. Before I introduce him, let me just say that our producer for the past 6 months or something has been Arleigh Burke, and hopefully we'll still see her at times and stuff, but she's moving on to another full-time job down in Burlington, and she has just done a wonderful job, deserves a lot of credit. She brought this whole project to fruition, and hopefully somebody over at the Senior Center is going to continue it, because I really think it's important. We're collecting these oral histories from veterans, and they're going to be permanently archived down at the National Library of Congress. People will have also internet access to them, and 500, 600 years from now, when they're researching the naval history of World War II, maybe they'll come across the oral history of George here and be able to get a kind of a first-hand feel for what it was like during that time. And he certainly does have a number of different adventures. But Arleigh Burke, have a, please don't be a stranger. You've done a great job, and the town of Chelmsford and Chelmsford Telemedia, Vilu, the director, and myself certainly do thank you for all you've done. Well, here we are with George Garmon.
Yes.
Gunner's Mate 3rd Class. He is sitting here in his original uniform.
Yeah, my tailor-mades.
Yeah, which you haven't gained a pound since you were in the Navy, have you?
On and off.
I mean, you look great.
Thank you.
And George, I want to thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
On the show.
Like to tell people, I think people should know what went on.
Absolutely.
I've spoken to a lot of the schools and the children. And
I know, talking from you beforehand, you are a storyteller. I mean, you have a lot of tales to tell. You've been through a lot of different adventures, lived through a lot of history. I want to start off, you grew up in Lowell,
yes,
Massachusetts. You went to Lowell High School.
Yes.
And do you remember when you first realized that we were at war? Do you remember Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I do. I remember coming out of the house and hearing the news on the radio that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor, and I thought to myself, we'll wipe them out in no time.
So you were kind of a carefree young kid, having a good time.
Oh, yeah.
At that point, it was December in Massachusetts, and you're probably involved maybe with some sports, school, other activities around the town and stuff. Were you conscious of the build-up to it at all?
Somewhat. I could see what was going on, and as the war went on and not going well, I wanted to enlist. I went in when I was 17, but I tried to get in before, but Mother and Father, Dad was a little more agreeable than Mother, but Mother wasn't about to sign any papers.
Now we should say that you have a history of the Navy, a long lineage,
Yeah.
With different people. I believe this is your grandfather.
No, that's my father.
That's your father, right
That's
here.
my father.
And what did your father do in the Navy?
He was a Navy fighter pilot.
He was a Navy during what years?
World War I.
World War I.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I didn't even realize that they had Navy.
The old biplanes, the open cockpit.
Really?
Open cockpit.
Wow.
They used to have a football helmet that they wore, and if they weren't wearing that and they crashed, the family would get no benefits.
Really?
No.
And then you also had, if you can hold on there, we've got some other people. Let's see. We have Ross Larkin.
That's my father-in-law.
That's your father-in-law,
Yeah.
on your wife's side, who happens to be sitting out in the studio.
He was an electrician on the old submarines in World War I. $1 a dive, you don't come up.
That's something.
My wife said that's why he took it, because he got more money on it.
And then going way back here, we have a...
That's my grandfather.
Your grandfather.
He was Admiral George Dewey's flag officer. He was aboard the Maine when she was sunk in Havana Harbor.
What And
The
did he
Spanish
survive that,
American-
or?
Yes, he did.
He did
Yes,
survive that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why my father told me when I tried to enlist in the Marines, he said, you got to go in the Navy.
Did you ever get to talk to your grandfather about the sinking of the Maine?
No, he died shortly after I was born.
Oh, okay. Did he ever, there was always been some controversy about that.
Yes.
Yes. Did he ever have an opinion on it that he stated out of curiosity?
My father didn't talk about it much.
Yeah.
No.
And then, of course, finally, we have this handsome young man right
Oh,
here.
Yeah.
And you haven't changed that much. You know?
Flattery will get you no
Oh.
place.
No, you're a good-looking young sailor.
Yeah.
And who joined up at an early age. So you came from a history. Before we get into just you joining up and stuff, what was your family life like around Lowell? What kind of occupation was your dad in and stuff?
Well, Dad was originally, as I say, when I was born, Dad spent 14 years in the Navy. He originally was an enlisted man. He was a motor machinist mate on the USS Jupiter, which in the Second World War was our first converted carrier, the USS Langley, CVE-1. But he went into, with the advent of naval aviation, he went into that and graduated into a Navy fighter pilot. And when I was born, my mother said, why don't you come out? You have a son. He came out, and the worst thing he ever did, because he went as a test pilot for an aircraft company that went broke. He lost his job, lost the house we were living in. So when you talk depression, this is the depression.
This was during and Lowell was having a very tough time anyway.
The 29 depression is what it was.
Yeah.
And he lost his job, we lost the house, and we had to move from one house to another, in with my grandmother and things like that. So that, I can remember I had one pair of shoes, and when those got worn out, my mother would give me $3 or $4, I'd walk to the cobbler shop and get them sold and walk back home.
Was this the way life was through the 30s mostly?
Yeah. Nobody had a car then, really. Everybody took the bus.
Yeah.
Local transportation, public transportation.
Was he eventually able to find some work?
Oh, yes. He worked for a good many years for the Harvard Brewery Company.
Yeah.
Which was over on Plain Street.
Did he ever go back to flying at all? Or?
No, he didn't. No.
Boy, test pilot. He must have been some type of flyer.
Well, I assume he was. I've got his pilot's licenses there.
Yeah.
Over there, and he had two pilot's licenses, one for fixed landing and one for hydroplane, because they did have the hydroplane.
Did you ever get a chance to fly with him
No.
as a kid? So you joined up in what year?
1943.
1943. You were 17 years old.
Yeah.
And did your parents at that point give you permission to join up? Because you were going to leave high school. You weren't even going to graduate.
Yeah, no, my mother didn't want to, but Dad was kind of old Navy. He wanted me to do it.
And I guess at this point, the war was, it was unsure the way things were going to turn out.
That's right. It wasn't going well.
Yeah. And we were fighting a two-front war.
Exactly.
In the Pacific Theater and over in the Atlantic.
Atlantic too.
So you joined up. Where did they send you for your basic training?
Newport, Rhode Island. I can remember sitting in Newport, Rhode Island one night, and I'm thinking to myself, what the heck have I got myself into?
Really?
But I soon found out.
Yeah.
Awful quick.
Now, why were you, just because this was all so new to you?
Well, like so many of the fellows my age, I can look back at it now and I can see where they liked young fellas 17, 18 years old, because like so many of the teenagers now, you think nothing's going to happen to you. All I can say is after you're out in the Pacific for 2 years, you begin to think you can get killed doing this.
Yeah.
It starts to dawn on you. But as I say, most of us was a live and let live. There wasn't any of this knifing and shooting now about teenagers. back when I was a kid, if you had a dispute with some guy, you and he went out in the yard and duked it out, and the last one standing was the winner.
Okay.
We didn't shoot anybody or knife anybody like they seem to do now.
Yeah.
But it was a big transformation, really, I think, for a great many of the young fellows, because it came down to kill or be killed.
Well, what was basic training like first? Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe the day-to-day?
Well, it was physical and mental. Test, Navy equipment and Navy know-how to do things. Basically, you trained, if you were a seaman, you trained knots and basic things like that. But not many of them wanted to stay in that group. They went out into other crafts like I did in the gunner's mate.
Was it a shock to the system, though, initially?
How do you mean?
Well, one day you're in high school, you go out, you go to a movie, you go get a hamburger, you go out with a girl or something like that, and all of a sudden...
Now you've got somebody telling you what to do 24 hours a
right.
day.
Was that agreeable to you?
Well, I can remember when I first went into boot camp, they give you a lot of shots, a lot of inoculations. And you went through the line, you'd be standing there, you're looking at this guy whacking your hair, and while he's whacking, they give you some more hair. In boot camp, we slept in hammocks. After I had so many of those shots, you had to put your arms up like that and grab hold of a pipe and swing your fanny into the hammock. I couldn't get my arms up there. I had to sleep on the floor that night. And that was kind of a shock to me then. I wasn't used to sleeping on the floor.
Were you homesick at all at that point? Or?
I think so, yes. I think so. I think you're bound to. Most of us had never been away. I had been away to scout camp and things like that, but never really away from home. I was 17.
Sure.
Hadn't left home yet.
Were most of the guys that you were in boot camp with younger, or were there some older?
Most of them were basically our age, my age, 17, 18.
But from all different parts of the country?
A few of them were older. The last week of boot camp, they marched us out to Rhode Island to a gunnery school. And it was right in the hot part of the summer in July or August. And there was some people in there. I remember there was one fella, it was about 8 or 10 mile hike. And there was some of the fellas just dropped. There was 2 or 3 fellas that were close to the limit of age. They were well in their 30s, and they weren't active like I was. They're kind of heavy in the weight, let's say, and they couldn't take it.
Sure.
They just dropped by the wayside.
Now, after your basic training, you went on to a specialty school?
I went to a gunnery school.
Where was that?
That was in Newport.
Oh, that was also in Newport.
Yeah.
So what's involved with the gunnery school?
Well, it's maintenance of the guns. You took them apart and put them back together.
Can you talk about what kind of guns you're dealing with?
You dealt with mainly the 20 millimeter, 40 millimeters, the 5-inch 38s, and as well as the Colt automatic pistols.
Oh, even the pistols too.
And small arms.
So so they're teaching you everything from a pistol up to anti-aircraft.
Yeah.
Up to cannons.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you were completely familiar with all of those?
You had to be, pretty much. I found my records recently. I got a 3.46 that I said, God, I didn't know I was that good, because 4.0 was the top you could get, like 100%, and I got 3.46. God, I did all right. I said, I didn't know I did that well.
Now, do you know why you went into gunnery school? Was that your choice, or was that where they decided you should be?
In boot camp, they asked you if. They didn't guarantee you anything. They said, if you want to go on to another school or craft, do you have a choice? And I put in for aviation machinist mate because Dad was an aviation man, and I figured I'd end up on a carrier.
Yeah.
I put in that. I put in gunner's mate, and torpedoman, and I was lucky enough to get per se further schooling, but not everybody did.
How long was your period in gunnery school?
I think it was about 2.5 months.
2.5 months.
Yeah.
So that's a good deal of training.
Yes, yes, it is.
During that period of time, did you get a little leave? So, I mean, you're not that far away from Lowell and...
Not during it. After I graduated, I had 10 days to come home.
You had 10 days to come back home and stuff. And did you know when you came home on your leave where you were going to be shipping off to?
No. No, I didn't.
So how'd you...
They just shipped me to the West Coast, Pendleton, out there in California, and the next thing I was off to the Pacific, and I left on an old Dutch freighter, and it was an old Dutch freighter, 1,000 soldiers and 600 sailors. Seasick as a dog.
Really?
Oh man, I wanted to die.
Was it run by the Dutch, or?
No, it was one of the ships that
Merchant Marines, or
the Allied forces had got, and they just converted it to a troop transport. 1,000 soldiers, 600 sailors. But
and where did that?
I ended up at about the only thing that kept me alive was bottles of Coke and apples. Food was terrible. And I landed at a CB base in Brisbane, Australia.
Where were you sleeping during the trip?
Mostly on deck. I didn't dare go down below deck.
Really?
Well,
how were relations between all the soldiers and sailors?
Oh, good, good. I used to sit with a lot of the soldiers there.
Playing cards and...
Yeah, they used to play card and pachisi and pinochle.
Yeah,
and,
do a little gambling, a little poker playing and stuff?
Oh, they did, but they didn't have that much money. But I got friendly with a couple of them, and I often wished I could find one of them now. But it was interesting because in the service, you met so many different fellows. A lot of these fellows were college fellows, and some were young like myself. Some were well in their 20s, maybe still in college. But they were a jovial bunch, and I got along well with them.
How long was the trip to Brisbane?
2 weeks.
Were you escorted by other destroyers?
Yeah.
You didn't run into any trouble along the way, or
Thank
anything?
goodness, no.
Yeah.
No.
How about, was there any type of seasickness or anything?
Yes.
Oh, there was?
Oh, yes.
From yourself, or?
Oh, yes.
So it took a little while getting used to the ocean there.
They had a bathroom there that was just lined with toilets, and you just sat on one and in the other one.
Oh, really?
You didn't know which end it was coming out.
So it was
But I got
initially
over
pretty
it.
miserable.
Oh, I got over it, thank the Lord.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you finally ended up in Brisbane, Australia. Did you know at that point that you were going, what ship you were going to? Or?
No, I didn't know. I was there for about 2.5 weeks, I think. And
well, when you got to Brisbane, Australia, what did they? Oh, I mean, you get off the ship. Where did they send you to? A barracks somewhere?
Yeah, tent.
Okay, a large tent.
A large tent. And every time it rained, you had to start moving your cots so that your cot wouldn't get leaked from the roof as the tent leaked.
And you were with hundreds of other young Navy
Oh, but
recruits?
those CB guys ate good.
Really?
I remember we got in there too late in the afternoon for supper, but they said, "There's the chow hall over there." Fine. I said, "What time is it open?" 7 o'clock. We got up the next morning, and most of us that had got off the ship lined up, and some of the ship's company come around the corner. "What the heck is this? Oh, geez, another ship." It was the only place in all the years I spent in the Navy, the only place where you could, if you wanted more food, you could get back in line, and you didn't have to get at the end of the line. You could go to the front line.
Oh, really?
But boy, did those CB guys eat good.
And it was good food?
Oh, CBs ate good. Good food.
Huh.
I remember they used to take us, move this, move that, move this. So 2 of us one day said, well, the chief would give you something to do, chief carpenter's mate, and then you wouldn't see him maybe till noontime, maybe not the rest of the day. So one day, 2 or 3 of us decided, let's goof off. The chief came back. Did we ever pay for that? Oh, we got caught.
Yeah. Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Well, listen, did you get to experience Australia at all, or were you just in on base?
No, I just we just on base.
You didn't get
I
out
did
in the town?
later on from my ship.
Oh, you did from your ship later on.
Because we used to I got orders to pick up my ship, the USS Mugford, a destroyer, up in Milne Bay in New Guinea, and I went aboard there.
You went aboard in New Guinea?
In New Guinea, in Milne Bay.
So how did you get over to New Guinea from
Well,
Australia?
they brought me up on a ship.
On another ship?
Yeah.
On another transport ship?
Yeah, Mizar.
Now this is, so basically from Australia to New Guinea, did you spend any time in New Guinea?
Yes, we operated out of New Guinea. My ship was part of Desron 4, Destroyer Squadron 4.
What harbor in New Guinea were you in?
Milne Bay.
Milne Bay, okay.
Milne Bay, yeah.
And so,
I'll never forget it.
when you were first exposed to New Guinea, what was New Guinea like back then?
Scary to the extent that the Japanese were on the other end of the island.
Okay.
I've got a map there that shows where they were, and they had half of the island. They were getting ready to invade Australia.
They were getting ready to invade Australia, but on the other half of the island, you had the fleet.
The fleet, yeah.
Yeah, which included how many ships?
Hard to say how many it was. They'd come and go all the time.
Now, were you being bombed or strafed or any?
Well, they used to come over occasionally, but the Army operated a lot of P-38s around there. Many a time they saved our rear end.
Now, when you first got shipped over to New Guinea, did you go on the, did you get into New Guinea, into the country a little bit at all, or?
Not occasionally we went into the dock, but I never went on the island. Frankly, there were headhunters still on the island, and I said, I'm not going on that island and look for any headhunter. I said, I like to keep my head attached to my body.
What was the weather like at that point?
The weather was good. It was warm. It was hot. It was hot out there all the time.
Yeah.
You know, I look at it now. I think back because now they've gone into women in the Navy. They had women in the Navy then, but not really on board ships, and they have them on board ships now.
Yeah.
And I look at it now and say, well, we'd have had to change the way we lived an awful lot on a destroyer, because we didn't have that much room on a destroyer. Your bunks were stacked one on top of the other.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much room. I don't know how you separate the men from the boys, but there was many a time. You see, we made our own fresh water out of the salt water, the desalinization they called it. And every now and then they'd have to be cleaned and scraped, or they'd break down and we wouldn't have water. The only water we had would go to the boilers to keep the ship running. So there's a few times when we would, you'd run into a rainstorm, you hadn't had a bath for 2 or 3 days, so you'd take a bar of soap and run out in a fantail, and you'd stand there in your Sunday suit and get all wet and all soaped down, and the rain would stop. And you say, what do I do now? Well, I don't know what you do if you had women on there then. How do we go out and...
Sure, right, yeah.
It's all right, the big ship, but I guess I'm from the old school.
Yeah. So you got to your ship that was in New Guinea. Is this a ship that had much history before you had arrived on it?
Oh, yes, yeah. The first thing, my ship was Admiral Arleigh Burke, famous admiral. He was chief of naval operations for 3 terms. And his first command of a ship before I got on there was my ship. And under him, he was a stickler for efficiency. And under him, my ship had, before I was on there, had 36 hits out of 36 shots, which was pretty good shooting then, because back then those 5-inch 38, the 5-inch 38 was a bombardment. We could hit land, and we could also shoot up in the air at aircraft. But they called these destroyers DD. The main reason they called them DD was dual destroyer, to the extent that the early destroyers their bombardment could only shoot at a ship or at land. They couldn't shoot at aircraft. So that the newer ships our aircraft could point up and down and shoot aircraft. But what I'm saying is we could hook up these guns to the radar, but the radar wasn't that advanced that it is now. We had a trainer who would turn the gun and a pointer that would point the gun up and down. And that's the way most of the times we would fire at these things. So for somebody to get 36 out of 36 was pretty doggone good then.
Yeah.
My ship was at Pearl Harbor.
Do you know what year was it built?
She was built in, she's commissioned 37.
37.
Authorized in 36 and built in 37.
So would that have been considered a fairly modern ship at that time in 43, or?
It was a single stack destroyer, to the extent that that was mainly the most of the destroyers that we had when World War II started.
Now you say the Mugford was also at Pearl Harbor when
at
Pearl
Pearl
Harbor
Harbor.
got attacked?
Yeah, she shot down 3 planes.
She did?
Yeah.
And was she damaged at all during that?
No,
or?
she got underway. They loaded her up and got her underway. She went out chasing submarines outside the harbor.
Was Burke the commander at that time?
No, he wasn't at that time. He was back in 38, I think it was, 39.
Okay. Now, who was your commander when you arrived on the ship?
Schellenberger.
What's his name?
Schellenberger.
Schellenberger.
Lieutenant Commander Schellenberger.
And what was his history a little bit? Do you know anything about him?
I never knew much about him. He did get some sort of a commendation shortly after I came aboard. They came aboard from the higher-ups and gave him a commendation.
When you arrived on the ship, had you arrived there with anybody who you had gone through basic training with or
No.
gunnery school or anything?
No. Yeah, a couple of fellows had gone to gunnery school with me.
So you arrived there with some friends, some of the guys who had sailed over on that Dutch freighter?
Yeah.
So you had some acquaintance, friends and stuff
Somewhat,
like that?
but
you were very, I mean, New Guinea from Lowell, Massachusetts is probably about as far away as you can get.
It's interesting in the service because you meet so many different fellows from different parts of the country. I got very close with another gunner's mate, Bob Whitehead from Indiana. And as a matter of fact, I got in a jam when I got into the gunnery's gang with the chief gunner's mate, because when I came aboard, I went on the deck crew as a seaman. But this other friend, Bob Whitehead, went into the gunnery gang, and then eventually I went in the gunnery gang, and an opening came for a gunner's mate 3rd class. And I told most of the guys, I said, I'm not going to take the exam, I'm going to let Bob take it. Bob was on here before I was, he was in the gang before I was, I think he deserves a shot at it. I just said, I'm not going to take it. Well, one day the chief gunner's mate come up to me and he says, you mind your own GD business. I said, what's the matter with you? He said, you're telling people not to take the exam. I said, I didn't tell anybody not to take the exam. I says, I'm not going to take it. I think Bob deserves a shot. Well, he used a little rough Navy talk on me. He was up one side of me and down the other.
Yeah.
In fact, when we were hit with a kamikaze later on, it hit right where he was, and he went overboard. And I was pretty upset. I didn't know where he was.
Okay, we're gonna talk a little bit about that, but we're gonna have to talk about that on our next show. This is going to probably be a 2-part and stuff, because these shows are on half an hour, and we're going to come back to chapter 2 of your life on the USS Mugford during the World War II. George, I do want to thank you very much for joining us on the program and stuff, and look forward to talking with you again.
Well, I thank you for inviting me, and I thank Arleigh Burke for speaking to me. Arleigh did speak to me before about it, and it slipped my mind, and she grabbed me the other day and said, get with us.
We'll be back very soon with George Garmon, and thank you for joining us on this program.
Rationing. And the Screen magazine in its 2nd issue tried to explain to me that and he wanted to know
If you can imagine 1943, harbor in New Guinea, a United States destroyer, during the heat of the summertime. You're on an island right over here. It's a little difficult to see, but down here is, you'll have to trust me on this, is New Guinea. A little bit more than half of it is perhaps occupied by the Japanese. It's the midst of one of the largest wars in the history of the world, really, and one of the largest naval campaigns also. And we have somebody who has come back from there, George Garmon. He was a gunner's mate, and I want to thank you again for rejoining us. George, when we left you last time, you had just arrived on the USS Mugford that is sitting here right between us. You had gone through basic training and gunnery school in Newport, Rhode Island. You had taken the long train trip across the country.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
you had taken a very long and difficult freighter trip across the Pacific to Brisbane, Australia. And from there, you were assigned to the USS Mugford. They called you the Australian Navy, though you really weren't, but that was because you were based out of Australia.
Yeah.
And you had just arrived on your ship. Tell us about the USS Mugford. What kind of how large was that ship, and how large was the crew?
Well, it's a tin can. That's Navy slang for a destroyer. They call them a tin can. Basically, they are a tin can. Our steel plates were 1/4 inch thick. The battleships were 16-inch plates. The battleship Massachusetts down in Fall River right now, one of their gun mounts weighed more than my whole ship did. The ship was 340 feet long and with a 43-foot beam. And she had a draft of about 9.5 or 10 feet of water.
And how large was the crew?
Wartime was about 250 to 275.
Now, what was the mission of the ship?
Well, a destroyer tin cans, they basically called them the workhorses of the fleet, the greyhounds of the fleet. They were fast, maneuverable. They always had something to do for a destroyer. We were the first ones in and the last ones out in invasions. We were with the Marines so many times. But if you had a task force going out with whether it's troop transports or battleships, carriers, they were in the middle, and on the outskirts, circumference around the task group would be the destroyers. Now, the destroyers protected the big ships. People say, what do you mean you protected the big ships? Well, we had the sound gear and we had the depth charges to pick up the submarines. And also, we were on the outskirts with our radar to pick up incoming aircraft. We got the first brunt of anything coming in. And that was our job, to protect the big ships. We also, we brought the landing troops in on most of the invasions. We were in close to the islands, giving them support. Many times the Marines would want some gun support, and we would go in close. I remember one night we were in Tinian in the Marianas, and the Marines, we had shipped ashore, and the Marines wanted some help. They had the Japanese holed up in one corner of the island, and they wanted us to move in. They wanted us to light up. Now, we had a searchlight on the ship that was about 6 feet in circumference. And we went into the island close and in and in and in, and in the dark you think you're going to hit the island. But we got in there and they gave us a reading where they wanted it. And they said, turn on the searchlight, and we turned it on, but it had louvers on it like a Venetian blind.
Yeah.
Well, they gave us the location, we opened it up, and this thing lit up, that searchlight lit up half the island, which was fine. But all of a sudden, the Japanese started, one on this side, one on this side, and they were getting closer every time.
Yeah.
Hey, this isn't working out very good. So finally, they decided, all right, shut the light off, and we went in and used another technicality. We used what we called we would fire a star shell. It would go up over the island, explode, and then it had like a parachute on it, and it would illuminate a lot like that.
Sure.
This was a lot better than us sitting there. This is like walking into a house with a burglar, you know,
Yeah.
you with a flashlight.
Sure.
They can shoot at you. So.
Yeah. Now, was there a particular gun that you were assigned to on this ship right here between us?
When I first battle station was right midships on this 20 millimeter, these two 20 millimeters. These are torpedo tubes here.
Right,
There's
down below
four and
here.
four. Those would swing out. We had 16 of them.
Yeah.
Later on, I was back here on the after deck house on this twin 40 millimeter. But this is where the kamikaze hit us, right in here.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that. After initially that you got there, was there what was your first mission that you were involved with?
Well, as I say, when I sat there in Newport, Rhode Island, in boot camps, wondering what I'd gotten myself into, a year later, just when my high school class was graduating, we were in the middle of the Marianas turkey shoot.
Okay, can you tell us what the Marianas turkey shoot was?
Marianas is the Marianas Islands, Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. And the Japanese were coming. We had invaded, trying to take back Saipan and Tinian and Guam. Tinian and Saipan were where the B-29s took off later in the war to bomb Japan. The B-29s were taken off there.
Yeah.
And we had invaded those islands. And the Japanese were flying in, they brought in 3 carriers to try to take the islands back. The whole task force shot down 400 Japanese planes. That's why they called it a turkey shoot.
How large was the task force?
There was about 150 ships, I'd say, offhand. 2 or 3 carriers, Enterprise, Franklin.
How long was that campaign?
That lasted about 3 months.
Lasted about 3 months.
Yeah.
Were you under constant fire during that period of time, or what was life like during that time?
Well, sometimes you were. You didn't leave your gun mount at all. You stayed there. The only time you left the gun mount was to go down to the head, down to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And even then, you'd get caught. I got a good shipmate down in Tennessee, and he remembers one time he was taking a shower, and they came in. He ran up to the bridge stark naked. But you had to do what you had to do when things broke loose.
Now, so at that point, you were in the Marianas and stuff. You wouldn't really face or see other Japanese ships, would you? Or?
Oh yes.
Oh, you would.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I can't imagine what that's like. I mean, I've hardly been at sea at all yet in the Navy and stuff, and those are. What is that like? How does that happen? I mean.
Oh, it's one thing I wondered when I first got out there, what would be my reaction, or what I would do, how would I react when all hell broke loose, let's say. It's a funny thing that you were so busy at the time, you didn't have time to think, to be afraid to that extent. You were, I'm not saying you weren't afraid, because you were, but things happened so much during it that you were just doing so many things, you didn't have time to think about being afraid. It was afterwards.
But when you would actually be in the ocean facing other and visibly seen Japanese destroyers or battleships and the like?
Absolutely, yes.
And
we didn't see them a lot of times because we were guarding the aircraft carriers.
Okay.
We were guarding them. The carriers would go off and attack the aircraft from the carriers would go off and attack the other ships. When the Marianas turkey shoot, when they came in, the Japanese were attacking. Now, as I say, the tin cans were to protect the big ships. I remember in the Marianas turkey shoot, we were right between the New Jersey and the Iowa. Now, those were the two biggest battleships we had at the time, right between them.
Okay.
I would say to you, why do you think we were there between the Iowa and the New Jersey?
Don't put me on the spot here.
You probably wouldn't know.
Right, yeah.
The thing was, if they got through with a torpedo plane and dropped a torpedo, we would have taken the torpedo. Don't let it hit the big ship. They could get another destroyer. It was cheaper to build another destroyer. And
oh, wow.
That's what we were there for. But when they started firing, you were on the battle phones, and you had it, bogeys coming in 090s, 17 miles, 15 miles, 12 miles, 10 miles. Commence fire. Well, those battleships were like a ball of fire. They had so many guns shooting away there.
Wow. So, and this occurred both at night and during the day and stuff? Or? Night
was tricky. The Japanese were pretty good night fighters at the first part of the war, especially at Guadalcanal.
So what was that? I mean, you experienced some of these attacks by the Japanese at night?
At night, yeah.
And so what was that like?
They had one fellow that he was more of a nuisance. They used to call him Bed Check Charlie. I forget what island he used to come over every night just to disturb your sleep.
Yeah.
And they called him Bed Check Charlie because that's what he'd do. He'd come over about 2 o'clock just to wake you up. And it was funny, I forget who it was. It was somebody like Pappy Boyington in the Marines, and they developed a night fighter, and the guy says, I'm going to get that guy. And he did. He went up and got him one night and shot him down.
Really? So what was the... I mean, can you paint a picture for us, like at one of these campaigns? I mean, is it just huge chaos, or I mean?
When we went back into the Philippines, Leyte Gulf, as I say, by the time I graduated, like I repeat, I wondered what I'd gotten myself into. By the time my high school class had graduated, I had gone through 3, maybe 4 major naval battles. First and second battle of the Philippine Sea, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, and the Marianas Turkey Shoot. Marianas Turkey Shoot. My class, my first mate was graduating when I was there. I kid her now and then. I say, you were going to all the proms and the dances, and I was getting my rear end shot off. You were living it up. Well, I couldn't help it, she said, but I like to kid her.
We should say she's sitting out in the studio watching this thing.
Yeah, you wonder what your first reaction would be, as I say, but you were just so busy that it happened so fast that you didn't have time to think about it, but afterwards you thought about it.
Well, talk a little bit about, for instance, the difference, the senses. I mean, is it a sky full of explosions? And
there's some of these battles, there was so much flak and things going off, you'd almost block out the sun. I mean, later on in the war, we had task forces of 200 or 300 ships. But up in the Philippines, you see, the whole war is based on cat and mouse. It's just like a batter and a pitcher in baseball. You're trying to outguess the other guy, what they're going to do. The Battle of Midway was a good example, and the Battle of the Philippines was the same way. At Midway, they didn't know. It's been on TV, but you've seen it a lot of times on TV maybe. They didn't know for sure if the Japanese were going to attack Midway or they were going up into the Aleutians. And this Lieutenant Rochefort was in the Naval Intelligence, and he was trying to figure out, they didn't know if they were coming at Midway or not, and they didn't know whether to send their aircraft carriers up there or what to do, whether they were going into a trap or to go up. So the Japanese they went into Attu and the Kiska and the Aleutians, kind of throw you off the track. But they didn't know, so this Rochefort came up with the idea. The Japanese code was saying AF, and they didn't know what AF was. The Americans couldn't figure it out. So this Rochefort said, I've got an idea. He says, have Midway wire out that our desalinization is gone and we're short of fresh water. He did that. The next thing they pick up from the Japanese is AF is short on water. Ha ha, we know what AF is. They knew they were going into Midway. You go into the Philippines, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, where we were hit with the kamikaze in the Surigao Straits in Leyte Gulf. Once again, the Japanese had 2 or 3 carrier forces, and we didn't know which way they were coming in. Now, one thing that they would do with a tin can, with a destroyer, they would send you up in this strait where you'd just go back and forth and back and forth. And if the Japanese come in, you would wire back, they're coming, here they are, and maybe get sunk and block the channel. But the Japanese knew you were there, and you were all alone. They call it picket duty. And just one destroyer, you're all alone, all by yourself. Japanese would come in low over the island, they'd come in and then they'd go up high and then they'd dive down on you. There's one can that took a hit. They took 4 kamikazes in there. Didn't sink it.
Wow.
Didn't sink it.
Now you were hit by, and I'm holding right in my hand, actually a piece of the kamikaze plane that hit the Mugford.
Yeah, she hit us right midship. She was headed for the bridge, and we hit her once just before, and she went down and hit this midship in the stack, number 25.
Where were you when it hit?
I was back here. I used to be here,
yeah,
where a lot of them were killed, but I was on the after deck house then, the twin 40 millimeter.
Yeah. Now, and it obviously didn't sink the ship.
No, knocked us dead in the water. Knocked us dead in the water, and LST took us under tow, and LST was, all you can say, was better than nothing.
How many casualties did you suffer?
There were 8 killed and 14 wounded. Some of them were just steam cooked.
Yeah.
But we had to go in and take them out. I had to go in and take them out of the fire room afterwards. They broke the steam rooms, fire room. But most of them were killed aboard.
Now, at that period of time, the kamikaze attacks were basically a regular...
regular, yeah.
Yeah.
They got worse at Okinawa.
They did. When you were disabled, how'd the ship deal with it and stuff? I mean, was there chaos?
Well, there was a fire, and
Yeah.
the fire got it out, but we were dead in the water, and they eventually got us underway, as I say, and LCM, I think it was, took us under tow, but their top speed by themselves was about 12 knots. So when they took us under tow, they're going about 5 knots. And we're used to going 35 or 40 knots.
Yeah. And they took you under tow to...
So that we wouldn't sit dead in the water
Right.
if there were any Japanese submarines
Yeah.
around.
And you were taken into Australia for repair, or?
No, we got going under our own power again.
Oh, you did?
Yes. Yeah. The motor machinist mate, the black gang, as we call them below deck, they got working again.
Now, how did, basically, you were on the USS Mugford during the Pacific Campaign. Did you have leave in between, or did you get to, or were you always on active duty, or what was life like then?
Very seldom. You look at sometimes, this good friend of mine that's down in Tennessee, he's a former Golden Gloves champ, and I worked with him a lot because he was a fire controlman, but he, quite a boxer, and he was a former Golden Gloves champ. But he and I used to kid a lot, and we'd meet, he'd be going forward and I'd be going aft, and we'd meet on the quarterdeck, which I always wondered why they called it the quarterdeck, because it was the middle of the ship. Why wasn't it the half deck? But
yeah,
that's another story. It was a quarter. We'd meet. He'd stop and he'd look at me and he'd say, "Clage Righam," and I'd say, "Fooby Doob." He'd say, "Mongy Pogue," and we'd just holler these idiotic things at each other and throw up our hands and walk off. We did that one time. One of the officers said, "How long have they been out here?" The guy says, "They've been out here 2 years, sir." He says, "I think they've been out here too long."
Oh, okay.
But we laughed about it. You didn't... I tell you one little story. We're in one of the islands. There's good times and bad times, funny times. We were in one of the islands one time. I forget what island it was now. But one of the natives came out in their canoes, And she knows. She laughed, she knows. They came out and the women were topless. Well, we almost capsized the ship. You got young, virile guys that hadn't seen women for maybe a year and a half or two.
Yeah.
And these native women they were topless. And everybody crowded over on the ship. I thought we were going to capsize it. But the officer said, get some T-shirts. Well, we gave them T-shirts. They came back the next day with 2 holes cut in the T-shirt. So much for the T-shirts, we said.
Oh, gosh.
But,
Now, did you get onto any of the islands? I mean, were you able to, you know?
We used to go on them occasionally for a little R&R, really. They called it beer parties. They would give you 6 Cokes and 2 beers or something, and I didn't drink, so I always had to do a lot of bargaining. I did some easy bargaining, and the fellas knew that I didn't drink beer, so that they always wanted to get my beer, and I'd say, well, I'll take your 6 Cokes for 1 beer. Oh, no, I said, well, that's all right. All right. So I'd end up with a flock of Cokes. I was on a good bargain there. But we'd play a little baseball or something, but not that really often. The extent of our recreation pretty much was a movie. And
they had a projector on ship?
yeah, if we would get back from the forward area, we could put it up. We had a screen that we'd put up on the bow of the ship. And but once again, you ran one reel. When that reel ran out, you had to wait till the projectionist take that reel off, rewound it, and put the next reel on. But we saw the same movie I don't know how many times.
So you were basically on active duty for 2 years in the Pacific. I mean, involved in various naval battles and campaigns and stuff.
The only time we got back is when the kamikaze hit us. Really, I wasn't aboard early in Guadalcanal, but at Guadalcanal, my ship was hit. Number 3 gun was put out of commission. I've got a picture of it there. And the sister ship had got hit 3 times, the Ralph Talbot, and her number 3 gun was good. So they just lined the 2 ships up, and they took number 3 gun off ours that had been hit, and they took the number 3 that was good on the Ralph Talbot, put it on our ship, and the Ralph Talbot went back, and my ship stayed. So that you juggled around a lot. They had a big base in Ulithi. Ulithi was a big base.
Where's Ulithi?
Ulithi's, it's out there in the islands.
Oh, it is.
They had a big dry dock, a floating dry dock there. I've got a picture there of it in the dry dock.
After 2 years, how were you doing emotionally? I mean, were you burning out, or were you able to deal with it? I mean, obviously you were able to deal with it, but
I think you deal with it, as I say. It seems to be afterwards that it hits you. I was sitting. We were in Nagasaki 3 weeks after the atomic bomb was dropped there.
You're kidding me.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, I've got a picture there too. We were in there 3 weeks after the atomic bomb was dropped in Nagasaki. Now, when we went into Nagasaki, they sent a harbor pilot, Japanese harbor pilot, to bring us in through the minefields and everything. To the extent, the only way I can describe it.
Can I just ask you this? When you went into were you the first ship that went into Nagasaki?
We went in with the hospital ship Haven, destroyer, the cruiser Wichita. We went in to take our prisoners out, our men.
Okay. So there were prisoners of war at Nagasaki?
Some of them have been beheaded.
Oh, wow.
Most of them were skin and bones.
Yeah.
But the only way I can describe it is going in through the harbor is like going in up the Merrimack River.
Yeah, okay.
Only there were higher hills on each side.
Yeah.
And
Can I just say, did you know that an atomic bomb had been dropped? I mean, you probably didn't even know what an atomic bomb was.
No, we heard that there was some big super bomb. Well, I just figured it was something that was, instead of 20 ton, it was 100 ton or 1,000,000 tons.
Sure.
I had no idea it was an atomic bomb.
And how long had after Nagasaki, I guess it was 7 days after Nagasaki that Japan surrendered?
It was 6 days after.
6 days after,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, 6th and 9th.
So this was basically 2 weeks after the end of the war.
Yeah, about a little over that, because it was 3 weeks after they dropped the bomb.
And so a ship came in to guide you, and
Well, the
at
harbor
this
pilot
point,
came
as it was
aboard.
taking you in the harbor, what were you thinking?
Well, that's what I say. There were these hills on each side, and you couldn't help but think, as fanatical as the Japanese had been, you couldn't help but think, I wonder if there's some nut sitting up there that's going to give us one more go.
Sure.
Because for us to turn around, it'd be like a trailer truck turning around out on Route 3, trying to turn around to get back the other way.
And it was just you and a hospital ship going in.
Yeah, we brought the hospital ship Haven and the Wichita.
Did you go right into the harbor in the middle of the city there?
Right in the city. What you see in the pictures on TV or the newspaper, I've got a picture there with me, that everything was gone. There was nothing. The only thing that was partially standing was anything that was masonry. Everything else was, you could see the streets, everything was gone.
Were you completely shocked, or? I mean, you had seen a lot.
Yes, but once again, you had things to do. You remember a while back when the Cole was damaged, the destroyer over in
Yemen.
Yemen.
Yeah.
We had what you call the captain's gig. This is the plaque that's on the gig. We had the gig. It was a little motorboat. We used to patrol the harbor at night, and I had the guns, machine gun, and the pistols, and we had other people. But we patrolled all around the harbor. We didn't allow anybody near the ships. Just as a little side comical thing, we had an ensign just out of Annapolis. He was a fuzzy-cheeked ensign, really. He just graduated. He looked like he was 17 years old. But he could speak Japanese, very smart fellow. And we'd stop these things, and he'd speak to them, and they'd look at him as if to say, "What the heck are you doing speaking Japanese?" And we'd say, "What did he say, Mr. May? What did he say? What did he say?" But we didn't allow them any place near the ship. At night, daytime, we patrolled the harbor.
George, listen, we have come to the end of another half hour. Time really flew, and I'm wondering if we can get you back for maybe one more half hour.
All right.
Just to hear a little bit more
Sure.
About the end of the war, and a little bit more of some of the incredible battles that you have been through. I should say that George is dressed, and we had said this at the preceding show, he's dressed in his original naval uniform. And you finished the Navy, a gunner's mate, second class.
Second class, yeah.
Second class. And you've even got your original socks on, and the uniform fits you great.
Thank you.
You've kept in good shape and stuff. I want to thank you very much for joining us, and thank you also very much for your service, and thank you for coming back again for one more time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, great, and we will join you again.
Rationing. And the Screen magazine, in its second issue, tried to explain the main and he wanted to know that what he could do in the world's greater city, become a monument to the courage and faith of the unsouthern Americans.
holding up in front of me, tagged, as a piece of a kamikaze, Japanese kamikaze plane that crashed into the USS Mugford in 1944.
5 December.
5 December, and the person that I have sitting with me, gunner's mate, second class, is George Garmon, and we're very fortunate to have him here. This is our third show with George, and we could probably do about 20 different shows. He's got so many different stories to tell. He was in the Navy during World War II. He was on the USS Mugford, and he served in a number of different campaigns. He went to high school in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I should say he is a graduate of Lowell, Massachusetts. Right here, there's a picture of him. He went back in 1999, where he received his high school diploma. I think it was part of a program that a number of high schools gave these. George left high school to go serve in the Navy during World War II at 17 years of age. And probably deserved for all you've been through a PhD, actually.
Well, 9 of us got our diploma.
9 of you got your diploma. I think that's a great program, and it had to be something.
The reporter
really
called
neat.
us, and when he called me, he said I was the last one I guess he got to, because he called and I wasn't home, and I had to call him back, and he said, "Why did you go in when you didn't have to? When it was early, why did you go in early?" I said, "It was a thing to do." He said, "Damn it all!" He said, "Every one of you guys said the same thing. It was a thing to do." I said, "It was a thing to do. That's all."
Yeah. Now, George, you were a gunner's mate, and a couple of, I want to get, when we had left you last time, we had talked about some of the different battles that you were in. And then we talked about you actually going into Nagasaki shortly after the war was over and shortly after the atomic bomb had been dropped there. I want to get back to that and stuff, but first, I just want to talk so people can get a feel for just what the day-to-day and what your life was like on this ship and stuff. When you're operating one of these guns, I mean, you know, when we've seen it maybe on movies, on TV and stuff like that, we see, you know, John Wayne shooting away in the sky and stuff. How did actually, you know, the guns that you worked operate? I mean, what was the process? Were you by yourself or working with a crew, or?
Well, you had a whole gun crew.
Okay.
Everybody had a job. Of course, at battle stations, everybody had a job. The cooks, the storekeepers, the quartermasters, no matter what it was, everybody had a gun station, a battle station. When that general quarters sounded, that thing would blow you out of bed. That was loud. You knew it was there. But everybody had a job to do.
So what was your job?
Well, at one time, the first part, I was on the mid 20 millimeters, firing the middle 20 millimeters.
Okay, and those are?
They were midships right here.
Oh, midships
we
right
had two
there.
of them.
Okay.
Two in one tub, one here, one there, and one on the port, one on the left side, one on the starboard or right side.
Now, how did those work? Is it? I mean, does somebody have to load them every time you fire?
Yeah, you had a casing that went on, and you just had to clip it in. When it stopped, you just took it off and grabbed another one and put it on.
So it's a clip of a number of different shells.
Shells. Yeah.
How many would each clip hold?
They held about 150 shots. They have now on the new destroyers a 20 millimeter, what they call phalanx. I call it a Gatling gun. It is like the old West Gatling gun that fired a round, and it fires similar to that. That will fire 3,000 rounds a minute now, they tell me.
And how many rounds were you firing a minute again?
Oh, I forget now. I don't know. It wasn't anywhere near that.
Right.
You couldn't fire that round because you didn't have the magazine didn't hold that much.
And primarily you would be firing at planes.
Yes, we sometime, but the 20 millimeters didn't have that long a range that we could fire if we were in close enough, which we were sometimes.
Sure. During one of these battles, you were in the battle in the Philippines, Leyte Gulf.
Leyte Gulf. Yeah.
How do you pronounce
Marianas.
Marianas.
Yeah.
They call that the
Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. That is.
When you were in one of these battles and stuff like that, and you're shooting up all this shrapnel into the sky and stuff, I mean, is stuff falling down all around you? I mean...
Well, not so much there. Yes, they will fall around, but you didn't have time to really look and see for this stuff. If something came, it would hit you and you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't see it to dodge it, so to say. The kamikaze that hit us made one run at us from the starboard side, from the right side. And he dropped, I think he had 2 bombs, because he dropped one and it missed. It went in the water and exploded. The other one, I think it looked like it hung up in the rack. And he circled around over the land, and we heard an explosion, and we presumed that the second one shook loose and dropped on the land. But when he came back and crashed into us, it's a good thing that he did lose that other bomb, because he did enough damage crashing into us. Stopped us dead in the water.
Did you, out of curiosity, did you see actually the plane approaching and knowing, oh my God, it's going to hit us, or?
Not to the extent, because I was loading the 40 millimeter on the after deck house, and I have handlers that would hand them to me. You had a clip of 5, and you just had to put them in, and that 40 millimeter was, that sucker would shoot them as fast as you could put them in there. So that you didn't have time to look off at something. You were just loading as fast as you could.
Yeah.
So that you didn't have time to look off. We had a pointer and a trainer on those guns that were, as I say, so many of the ships now, all this stuff is done automatically, and the radar is perfected now to where they can shoot these things.
Yeah.
The destroyers now have missiles. We never had a missile.
Right.
And
the reason I was asking, as I said when we were off camera, the reason I was asking about some of these naval battles is World War II was probably the last time that these type of naval battles will be fought.
It's changed so much, because the turning point of battle in the Second World War, the big thing, that's why the Japanese went after the battleships, because the battleship was the big thing. But it turned out that the big thing in World War II was the aircraft carriers. Now, we were lucky at Pearl because our carriers were out at sea. And those were the only carriers we had. We had 3 carriers then. And if they'd have been there, oof,
yeah,
it's scary to think what would have happened.
When we had finished up our chapter 2 in our discussion with you, we had left you sailing into Nagasaki at the end of the war. And there was probably so many mixed emotions within you. I mean, you talked about that you're concentrating on what your job is and stuff, and you're looking out there and stuff, but on one hand, you know that the war is over. Number 2, you're going into Japan. And number 3, you're going into one of the only 2 cities that have been hit by an atomic bomb. Oh. At that time, you thought it was some type of very heavy super bomb or something like that. And it just must have been an incredible conflagration of different emotions coming in on you at that time.
I've lost quite a few shipmates due, I think, to radiation. They've developed lymphoma, and they've had brain tumors and things like this that I think is related to the radiation that undoubtedly we must have been exposed to, because I don't think the government knew what the radiation exposure limit was then.
Yeah.
To those bombs. We did go on land a little bit, but any pictures you see is just what it was. There was nothing there.
And I guess, you know, the incredible thing is at this time, I mean, they had, in the States, they were celebrating Victory Day. Mm-hmm. But you were in a very different place. I mean, there's probably not a whole lot of big Victory Day celebrations as you're sailing into the heart of Japan, into this completely devastated country at that point.
You didn't know what to expect. You know, they were fanatical, and you just didn't know what to expect. That they, as I say, the only way I can describe it is like sailing up the Merrimack River. We went in, and there were hills on each side, and you just couldn't help but think, I wonder if there's somebody up there, some nut that's going to give us one more shot, and not going to. He may die, but it's like the kamikaze.
But there weren't any snipers or anything like that,
No, we
were
didn't
there?
experience anything in there, thank
Yeah.
goodness.
Now, did you get off ship?
I went on land 2 or 3 times, yeah. We went in there, as I say, our main mission was to bring out our prisoners that had been captured. We had the hospital ship Haven.
Yeah. How many prisoners did you come across?
I don't recall right now. There were hundreds of them that, you know, they brought them on, took them on the hospital
So these
ship.
were American prisoners
Yeah.
that were in Nagasaki when the bomb was dropped, or had they been later shipped to there?
They had been brought in from outlying areas, because if they'd have been in Nagasaki,
Very few people survived.
yeah, exactly.
Did you see Japanese people?
We did when we patrolled the harbor in the captain's gig, the little motorboat we had.
Yeah.
We didn't sail around in the destroyer around the harbor, but the little motorboat, as I describe it.
Yeah.
We did cruise the harbor and stopped anybody, no matter where they were. We didn't allow them near the ships.
And what was, I mean, were they basically people defeated? I mean, they were obviously defeated and beaten and stuff, but I mean, what Japan had gone through, and, you know, particularly Nagasaki, I mean, were they just in shock, or?
Well, we didn't have that much contact with the people
Yeah.
themselves, really. Most of the people that had lived there were dead,
Yeah.
right in Nagasaki.
Could you see bodies and stuff?
No.
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 Of course, a lot of people probably were vaporized, actually.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. Everything was pretty incinerated.
Yeah.
Because those pictures you see, it was just nothing there.
And at that point, going in on there and stuff, I mean, it was probably a highly radioactive place.
I think it was. I don't think the government knew how dangerous it was.
I mean, you didn't know what radioactivity was at that point,
No.
did you?
No.
Did you have any type of protection or anything when you were walking around there?
Didn't take anything. Didn't take anything with us. As a matter of fact, after my ship, they used my ship after the war, and the Bikini bomb tests you may have heard about.
Yes.
They dropped 2 bombs, Able and Baker. One was above the water and one was in the water. They had ships in the water. And another gunner's mate of mine was still on it then, and they tied the ship up, and then when they dropped the bomb, he went back aboard to see how things were on the ship. And the atomic people came by, and they had their Geiger counters, and they said, "Get the heck off of this thing," because the Geiger counters were going off like mad. So the ship was contaminated. In fact, the ship now is off Kwajalein in the Pacific. They sunk her afterwards. I think she was contaminated.
Yeah.
They didn't bring it back to scrap it or do anything else with it.
Yeah.
They just sunk it off Kwajalein.
How long were you in the Nagasaki harbor for?
We were there about 10 days, I think. And then we left to go over to Sasebo, a big naval base.
That's also in Japan?
Yes, that's a big naval base in Japan.
And was that, I mean, obviously that wasn't as badly damaged as Nagasaki.
No, they just dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Right, but it had probably been bombed
It
being
had
a
been
naval
bombed,
base, right?
yeah.
How long were you at that other Japanese base?
The ship was there. I left Japan, Sasebo. We were there about a week, but I got word from a 5th District woman, Mrs. Rogers, that my mother had been operated on and was dying, and did I want emergency leave? And the ship's doctor told me what it was, and yeah.
Yeah.
It's over. What else? I don't think I'm needed now. Let me go home.
Yeah.
And so I started back, but my mother died before I got home.
which is, yeah, that's very sad.
Yeah. I've told so many of the children when I've spoken to the children in schools, I tell them, when you go home today, you tell your mother you love her.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I said, you don't know when.
And
I can remember after going back, after the kamikaze, when we came back and I had leave, and I can remember going back to the railroad station when it was on Middlesex Street in Lowell, and I can remember standing there waving to my mother and father saying,
yeah,
see ya, don't worry, I'll be all right.
yeah, and that's strange that after all the battles you had been through.
I didn't think it would be my mother that would be gone.
Right, yeah.
Instead of me.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. But she must have been very proud of you, and she did get to see the war over. And
yeah, just about.
I mean, she knew that the war ended and stuff.
Yeah. My father was proud. I know. When I came home,
yeah.
I didn't have a car. My father let me take the car, and I'd drive him to work, and then pick him up at night. And
yeah.
I went over to pick him up one day, and I just put my old clothes on, and I got over there, and where's your uniform? And I said, oh, Dad, geez, I said, let me get out of it. And so, but when I got home that night, the next day, my mother says, when you go over to pick up your father, put your uniform on, will you? I said, Ma, please, I want to get out of it. She said, put your uniform on for your father. He being an old Navy man, he, wanted to show off his son, I suppose.
George, one thing that I can't imagine is coming home from some of the greatest naval battles in World War II, coming home from Nagasaki, one of the only cities where the atomic bomb has been dropped, coming home, unfortunately, to the passing of your mother, and then just readjusting. How,
I basically wanted to crawl in a hole, I guess, and just let the world go by.
Yeah. You'd been on a ship for 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, just being on a ship for 2 years is one thing. Being on a ship 2 years and being constantly, facing Japanese Zeros and other planes, torpedo bombers and stuff, being hit by a kamikaze and everything. And I mean, it's just the readjustment had to be incredible.
My first mate, my wife and I went to school together, and we started going together when I came home, and she was a very steadying effect on me.
How soon after you came home?
Very good. Oh, I'd say almost immediately, because I came home and I went to church, and she was at church, and I saw her and started going with her then.
Yeah. So your wife was there for you, but was there a period of readjustment? I mean, obviously there was, but...
Well, it's an entirely different life, of course, because when...
I mean, I should ask, after you came home for, the funeral of your mother and stuff like that, did you leave the Navy at that point?
Yeah. I was supposed to stay in. I had signed up for 6 years, but I only got a little 3 years.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't go anymore. After 2 years in the Pacific and then losing my mother.
Yeah.
Basically, as I say, I just wanted to crawl in a hole, and in a way, I let the world go by. In a way, I did it because I went to work for the telephone company, and I used to work in manholes a lot. So I did crawl in the hole. I don't know if the world went by, but it was a big adjustment from your civilian life like myself, 17 years old. I mean, I played baseball in junior high school. I played football in high school, and you just came and went. But now to change, to go into something where somebody is telling you what to do 24 hours a day in the service, and you've got a job. Now you've got to change from being Mr. Nice Guy to, well, kill or be killed. I
Yeah.
mean, now you got to try and convert back. You got to try and convert back to be Mr. Nice Guy again, so to say.
Right. I mean, it's just back
because
to regular life.
you lived with these guys 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
When I say, you know, I spent 3 years in the Navy, but time-wise, it was a short time. But as far as a major part of your life, it's a tremendous big part of your life.
Sure, absolutely.
I see the reunions, the ship reunions that I go to, and I know the women don't get out. You know, my wife said, gee, because I always drive because I like to bring my ship with me.
Now, can I just ask you something about the ship? Where'd you get the ship? Or, I mean,
a friend of mine made it.
A friend of yours made it?
Yeah, a friend of mine made it. We used to sleep back here under the screws, and I can remember when I first went down there, those screws, the propellers, made an awful lot of noise because they were right down below where we were. And depending on how the ship pitched and rolled, they'd come out of the water and go down in the water. Oh, I said, man, how am I going to go to sleep with all this? After you'd been in battle for 3 days, that thing would jump, just put you right to sleep.
Yeah.
Put you right to sleep.
Can I just something very quickly about the ship? This right here, is this made out of wood?
It's partially, a lot of it's balsam. I think that he made it out of.
Well, he really did quite a job on it.
I'm like a kid with a new toy. When I was a kid and you got a new toy, you used to take it to bed with you. Yeah. My wife hasn't let me take that to bed yet.
Did he surprise you with this, or did you know he was making it?
I didn't know he was making it. He came to a sister ship reunion down in Philadelphia.
Well, he was a shipmate?
He was on another destroyer. And his daughter lived in Weymouth, where Ralph Talbot, our sister ship, which was just identical to this, Ralph Talbot and the Mugford were built in Boston. And he built one, and he told me about it, and it was down in Weymouth, where Ralph Talbot came from. And I said, gee, is it down there? He said, yeah. And I called him and asked him if I could come down and looked at it, and I looked at it, oh, Paul. And they had it all closed in like this in a big case, and I said, Paul, it's a good thing they had that thing tied up. I said, they'd have been missing. And he didn't tell me, and we were in Philadelphia to the reunion. He said, what were your call letters? I said, what's a gunner's mate know about call letters? We found a radio man. He says, NEXR, those are our call letters, the flags there. And about a month or two later, he says, George, he said, he called me on the phone. He says, I've got something sitting on my living room table here. He says, it looks like a ship. He said, it's got a number 389 on it, and on the back it says MUGF. Oh, Paul, he says, I'll meet you halfway. I said, Paul, stay where you are. Paul Keogh was his name. I said, stay right where you are. And I went down there, wanted to give him $200, and he wouldn't take it.
He just gave you that?
He gave me that ship.
Boy, that's quite a friend. Because it's really, I mean, it's intricate. I mean, he's got everything on there.
See, there was only 39 of these ever built. See, there was one stack. Most of the destroyers had two stacks.
Yeah.
But they had number one. If you can see, number one fire room comes up, and number two fire room comes up into one stack. But there were four funnels inside that stack.
Wow. Boy,
but there was only 39 of those ever built.
Now, I should say we have a couple other things right here. This is, where'd you get this from?
Everybody always asks me that. That I had to clean that all up. This is brass, and those are copper letters soldered on. That came off the captain's gig, as it says, USS Mugford gig. That was a little motorboat.
This is a real collector's item.
It was all painted battleship gray. Everything was painted battleship gray.
How'd you get a hold of it, though?
Everybody asks me that. Arleigh Burke, when they had, another funny thing about Arleigh Burke, when they told Arleigh they wanted to make the new class destroyer, the Arleigh Burke destroyer class, he said, I don't think I'd like that. He said, because you have to be dead to have something named after you. And he said, I don't want to qualify. But I told him I had this. I wrote him a letter because I went to the launching of the Arleigh Burke up in Bath and then the commissioning in Norfolk. And I had it with me. He says, I'd like to see it. And I showed it to him, and this woman sitting next to him, it wasn't his wife, it was another friend of his, she said, how did you get that? And Arleigh Burke, I think he was 93 years old, he leaned over and he said, you don't ask an old sailor those questions. But I think we used to have 2 gigs on the ship, and we only had one when I went aboard, and I think they must have taken that off the gig. And my father was in the Navy, and he had a lot of souvenirs, and I must have said, there's a souvenir.
Yeah.
I stuck it in my sea bag, and I was lucky I got off the ship with it, actually.
And also, I should say, sitting behind you is an old flag. Encased in plastic.
Yeah.
What's the story of that flag?
That's the flag we were flying in, as I say, the Marianas turkey shoot, the Saipan, Tinian, Guam, the Marianas Islands, they call them. And that was when we shot down 400 Japanese planes. And people asked me, how did you get that? And once again, I bamboozled the quartermaster to get that. After we
and boy, you have quite a collection of different things. I think it's great that you have maintained everything. And after all that, you finally did readjust. You've been married how long?
55 years.
55 years to your first mate there.
She deserves a medal above and beyond the call of duty.
I think she probably considers herself pretty lucky too. She's kept herself very well too. I would say you're pretty.
That's my good care.
Well, you both seem to stay pretty active, and I think it's wonderful how you basically have retained everything from it, and you continue to go to reunions.
I've had to stop pretty much, but my first mate has some memory problems, so I have to kind of watch what I do.
But you did make it out to Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
You drove across the country there. Yeah, and you still stay in touch with a number of your
oh, yes.
shipmates and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are still living?
Yes, we've lost a lot. But the ironic part of it is one of them is now in Japan. He's been there for something like 40 years as a missionary.
Have you stayed in touch with him?
Yeah, yeah.
Gee whiz.
Yeah, and I asked him, do you run into a lot of, because he's teaching Christianity, and I asked him, do you run into a lot of flack or people trying to say get out? Or, no, he said a lot of them are very interested. He's been there 40 years.
Well, it's been a long time, and now, ironically, both Japan and Germany are 2 of our strongest allies.
Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, George, I want to thank you very much. It's really been a pleasure talking to you.
Talk to you, man. Thank you.
This is our 3rd show with you, and what a story it is. And thank you for bringing in all this stuff, and thank you for the service.
Well, I thank you for inviting me. I think the public should know of what the young fellows went through. Well, they do now,
and this is going to be a permanent record. And thank you for joining us, too.